experimentation is one way that a company that's product-driven can guarantee that it's data-driven.
There was a war or a wall?
A wall, a physical wall. We were left to our own devices. We picked our own data technologies, reporting tools. They had their own. It was very much separate. Church and state.
What were your biggest fuck-ups?
Spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on software that you aren't getting the team to use is one of my biggest regrets.
Starting with the user's needs, challenges, desires, anxiety, not starting with technology.
Technology is downstream from everything.
Tristan Burns is formerly a senior data leader within a $1 billion global e-commerce business, Pizza Hut Digital Ventures. He has collected 15 years experience in data, financial analysis, and strategy roles across startups, scale-ups, and corporate banking. He's deeply passionate about technology and startups and has been endorsed by the UK's Tech Nation as Global Talent in Tech. He speaks frequently at tech events and has experience as a founder, having started 2 marketplace businesses. Today, Tristan lends his expertise to the world of data leadership, where he coaches and advises data leaders from some of the world's most well-known brands on how to become better leaders. I will talk with Tristan about his data journey at Pizza Hut Digital Ventures. We will discuss how the data team developed from when he started the team as the first analyst until he left 4 years later. We also talk about which data initiatives had the biggest impact on the business and what the biggest fuck-ups were. Lastly, Tris will share his advice for future data leaders. And with that, I bring you Tristan Burns. Fantastic. Let's talk about your time at Pizza Hut Digital Ventures. I'm interested to hear about it. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about what you did at Pizza Hut Digital Ventures, what Pizza Hut Digital Ventures did.
I'll start with what the company was. Everyone is familiar with the Pizza Hut. It's the world's second largest pizza business in 120 something countries, possibly more by now. It's been around in the United States at least since I think the 1950s. It's been in the UK since the 1970s. It's on every continent except Antarctica, which makes sense. So yeah, it's a very well-known brand, but what comes with being a very well-known brand, of course, is legacy. We have a company that's many decades old, that has established its brand presence. It's very well known to consumers, and like a lot of legacy businesses, I think it's facing massive change in the way that consumers interact with brands, the way that people consume food in particular. The delivery industry has been completely turned on its head. Even since I was there, which is now 2 years ago, things have changed a lot. They changed a lot as well while I was there, and in lead up to me being there, which I started in 2015. The Pizza Hut did something very intelligent. The parent company, Pizza Hut, based out of Texas, decided that for the international market, except for the United States, we needed consistency in our online experiences around all countries we operate in. They set aside capital and invested in an internal startup, a company more or less autonomous, operated like a startup, but under the umbrella of the Pizza Hut brand. So basically a startup with one investor, being Pizza Hut. And that startup was called Pizza Hut Digital Ventures. The purpose of Pizza Hut Digital Ventures was to build and scale e-commerce solutions for all the international non-US countries in which Pizza Hut operates, and to configure the restaurant backend technology. And the second part of your question was, what was my job there? So I was actually the first full-time hire in data. So I came from finance and resource industry. I had a little bit of time in startups as well, but I was looking for a job, and through my network, I was asked to come on and be the lead data analyst, but there was no head of. And it wasn't long before I was made head of. My job within Pizza Hut Digital Ventures was to build out the data team, scale our data capabilities, create a data-centric culture. Pizza Hut itself is a very legacy business, so that was a much harder challenge than might seem on the surface. But at the end of the day, I stayed there for 4 years. It was a job I enjoyed more than any other. Made lifelong connections. I catch up with the guys I used to work with a lot. Really enjoyed it.
You were there between 2015 and 2019, yeah?
I was there 2018 till 2022. I don't know why I said 2015. Yeah, I got my dates mixed up. 2018 is when I started there.
Okay. And you said within Pizza Hut Digital Ventures, you were the first data hire, and you joined as a lead data analyst to build the team. Was that the first digital hire in the whole of Pizza Hut, or was there separate data teams between Pizza Hut Digital Ventures and...
Separate data teams. Pizza Hut, the corporate brand, had its own data capability, not a very big one, to be honest. That was based in Texas, in the US. Our team was a purely digital team based in London. So there was a wall between the two data teams. Ours was around our own technologies, and they had their own supply chain, logistics, business, and marketing.
There was a war or a wall?
A wall, a physical wall. However, as we matured, our capabilities improved, collaboration became common and essential later on in the journey. In the beginning stages of PHDV Digital Ventures, we were left to our own devices. We picked our own data technologies, reporting tools. They had their own, it was very much separate. Church and state.
How did you split your areas of responsibility? Was it like domain focus, or you also said location focus because you were looking at ventures outside of the US? What was the split?
So it's confusing structure, to be honest, but every country in which Pizza Hut operates has got its own head office, essentially a corporate location. That location is responsible for selling franchises, brand, marketing, and by marketing I mean television and newspaper and offline marketing, and some digital increasingly. They would also handle the supply chain and the stock. They would also write the menus and do all of that sort of stuff. Our job was the digital front door. All of these countries had their own websites in 2018. They did, but the problem was inconsistent experiences between the different markets. If you went onto the Japan website, it would be an extremely different look and feel to the UK website. Yeah. Of course, they would have different menus because of local taste, but that aside, the user experience was very different. The branding was often very different. For example, some websites operated with a wholly black background and very low quality imaging, whereas others were the white one, which you might be more familiar with today, in green calls to action. We had to create a consistent user experience, but also a consistent scalable technology.
Right. Okay. And then in that case, in terms of domain responsibility or analytics, was it then a lot of product analytics?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So product analytics, marketing analytics, but also a lot of commercial, because we were the shop front. You posted a really cool resource today that I had a quick observation of, which was all the e-commerce metrics. So a lot of that really resonated with me, because you've got things like your active users, you've got your conversion rate, average order value, those kinds of things.
Okay, so you said product analytics, marketing analytics, and when you talk about e-commerce analytics, you're talking about things like average order value, shipping frequency, loyalty. So you did the whole customer profiling thing as well?
Yes, we would partner with the local, like I said earlier, the local individual country heads had marketing teams. We didn't have a marketing team. They would be responsible for the marketing campaigns, for doing all the creative and so forth. We would be the analytics. So we would be feeding back to them and educating them as we went. Not that none of us were really marketing experts, but we had the ability to analyze the data and to shoot and to kind of collaborate and partner with marketing teams and help them to become performance marketing teams and digital marketing teams.
Yeah, that's interesting. That sounds similar to what we did back in Rocket Internet.
How in what way?
We did similar topics. We did analytics in different areas: on-site experience, marketing analytics, customer profiles, all e-commerce metrics, and we were helping different Rocket ventures to also benchmark each other and build similar experiences.
It's like a venture studio approach.
Exactly. Where we had a blueprint how to build and run a great e-commerce business and basically transport best practices into different markets.
Perfect.
So a lot of overlap. That's
very similar, except ours just happened to sell one thing, and that was pizza.
Okay, so you were within Pizza Hut Digital Ventures, the very first person in the data team.
I was the first full-time hire. There was a contractor. Yeah.
What was there when you joined?
There was one web analytics contractor looking at GA.
So you joined as a lead data analyst. Your background was in finance, right?
I've been in data analytics in banking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Your profile is not engineer, not data engineer, not analytics engineer, not data scientist. Your profile when you joined was data analyst.
Correct.
At that time, you had one web analytics contractor yourself. What happened then in those 4 years? How did the data team develop? Who did you hire first? Talk me through.
You're going to test my memory here. We operated teams in the UK, Vietnam, and later on, depending on the area of need. We started in the UK with hiring. I brought on a brilliant, what I called at the time a technical analyst, although aspirationally, I think that today you could refer to her as an analytics engineer. So she went to town on setting up things like our BigQuery instance, Google Analytics, and those capabilities. We used Domo for our BI. So that was all set up by her, which was really cool. Lots of things I'm probably forgetting that she was highly capable of doing and really, really good at. So that was the first hire.
You're the person I talked to who uses Domo.
I cannot understand why Domo is not more popular and ubiquitous. I love it. It is fantastic, beautiful, and easy to use. I wish it were more available and around the place. It's a missed opportunity that people aren't picking up Domo.
Great.
The other big important hire was our data solutions architect who knew how to use tag management tools and set up product analytics so we could track customer interactions with our assets and do a fantastic job with that. So that was something that we'd had until that point a consultancy helping on. They were doing all that, but they were over engineering. We brought an expert in-house to do this, and they revolutionized how we did that, and it made our product analytics accuracy much closer to the truth, more reliable, put us in a far better position. That person is still there today doing an incredible job. Other analysts were hired as we grew that came and went, as well as eventually, actually, I might get the order wrong here, but we also invested in conversion rate optimization team, and that sat under my data team, which is not typical. Oftentimes they report to a product person or marketing. I'm a strong proponent for experimentation. Experimentation is one way that a company that's product driven can guarantee that it's data driven. So I brought in CRO experts, and they brought in people under them as well. And we created the experimentation program within Pizza Hut that we scaled to all the countries we operated in, which was, in my opinion, quite successful.
Cool. Okay. So if I got that correctly, you brought in, so first you brought in analytics engineering. You built up a data warehouse on BigQuery. You had Domo sitting on top of that. Then you built capabilities in tag management, more analysts joining, then conversion rate optimization team. Let's talk about the most impactful things you and your team did during those 4 years. What will be the first things that come to your mind in terms of business impact?
In terms of business impact, experimentation is probably the thing I'm most proud of. We went from not doing any experiments to building 1 or 2 per week and rolling out successful wins or iterating, creating an entire process around how we dealt with the intake of ideas, building, executing, and rolling out tests. If not successful, iterating and trying again. I think one experiment where we made the user experience for adding a product basket easier on a particular site, extrapolated over a year, it generated £1 million of additional revenue, hypothetically, which is super cool to see, because you can say that if we take 2 weeks of data that we've observed where we've had treatment on and the treatment off and split the test for customers in the variant, it would come to over £1 million, which is phenomenal to know that just by throwing ideas around, just by trying things, you can actually have a huge impact on the metrics, but also you can create a better experience for customers, which is what we're here to do.
Do you remember what kind of experiment that was?
Yes, it was a call to action. On our menu pages, we had a picture of a pizza. The original design was to click into that so you could customize it, but a lot of people didn't customize. They just bought the default. So they didn't need to click in to customize because they could have just gone with the default. So instead of just saying, we just had a call to action. I can't remember what it said, but don't customize or buy now. And many people who were happy not to customize would click that. Instead of asking them to go through all the extra steps of saying, no, I don't want to customize, we made the journey smoother, less friction, more product added to basket, more purchases.
Okay, so you shortened the checkout process for those people who don't want all the bells and whistles.
I would say the add to basket process.
Yeah, right.
Add to basket process. Yeah, a bit higher up the funnel.
Do you remember the percentages for people who want to customize versus the ones who don't?
Oh, it's been some time since that experiment was run, but yeah, it was definitely a considerable percentage of people who didn't bother customizing.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Good example.
Yeah, I think the original design was very attractive. It was nice because it was very clean. It didn't have the CTA. You click, it was just a tile, very smooth. And on the surface, it felt like a better design. The variant we created was kind of ugly.
Yeah.
You've added this chunky CTA to the bottom of this beautiful tile. Now you've got a page full of green buttons. But it didn't matter because it made the life easier for the customer to achieve the goal they had in mind.
Incredible. In which country did you test that?
Multiple countries. The UK, our biggest markets, were usually the lead for whether or not we would roll out a change globally. We would get to significance much faster in large countries with large markets like Japan, UK, Mexico, and large number of Pizza Huts, India as well. So we would probably test something in those markets. And if we got consistent results, we would probably just say, look, it's pretty safe to give this to everybody. But if we got differing results, say UK and India were different, that's very interesting. Okay, let's explore that and we'll iterate. We can see similarities between markets. For example, New Zealand and the UK are probably not too dissimilar in tastes and culture. So what works in the UK, very large market with lots of countries, lots of customers, very quick to get to significance. It takes us much longer to test it in a small market like New Zealand with far fewer people, far fewer stores. So let's not bother testing there. Let's just deploy the successful variants to that smaller market.
Yeah. How did your data team collaborate with the different business units, with the product managers, with the marketing teams? Like, did they have their own analysts building their own things in Domo or building their own things in BigQuery?
If we're thinking about structure, the easiest way to describe it would be there was a centralized structure that everyone was in my team, and that we would help as and when needed with the product squads, marketing teams, and commercial teams. Being the head of data, I tended to focus my efforts on corporate level stuff, so high level data reporting, anything financial, anything kind of long-term performance. The analytics engineer focused on overall health of the organization and the way that data is treated. And then the analysts would go and on an as needed basis and sit in the squad. So I would move them around frequently. No one was ever dedicated to this area of the experience for very long, but without a huge data team, it's difficult to operate a hub and spoke model where you have an analyst in every single squad.
So you were running in this setup where you had cross-functional teams that were kind of outcome-oriented, and you would put the people from the business and from the data team together into these cross-functional teams. Yeah,
that's right. So our squads would largely be responsible for a portion of the user experience from op funnel. You could break the funnel down into, I think, maybe 3 parts, and then we would have other squads for a couple of different areas as well. So you'd have a top of funnel squad, so they would be all about the onboarding experience, making sure the customer can find the store that they're nearest to, helping them get past that page and onto the menu. The menu squads, which are responsible for designing and building intuitive and easy to use menus. And then you'd have like the checkout team, which made sure that we got paid, kind of thing. And then you'd have like restaurant technology squad, which would be kind of more back-end focused, less front-end focused, and I guess some delivery functions. Those squads would have a designer, access to CRO, product engineering, and research.
And how large was that whole structure of Pizza Hut Digital Ventures? So how many are we talking?
5 or 6 squads. Towards the end, 200 people in the business, but I can't say that includes, marketing, corporate, finance people as well. The squads were probably 8 or 9 people each. So that's probably we're coming up to 50, 60 people in engineering and product.
Amazing. What were your biggest fuck-ups?
It's borderline whether or not it's an actual fuck up, but I sometimes found myself investing in products that the analytics team could use without getting buy-in from the business to use those products. I'll use the example of, I don't know if you're familiar with, it's kind of a UX/analytics tool, Content Square. Yeah. So it's kind of like Hotjar on steroids. In fact, they purchased Hotjar. Content Square, it allows you to see where customers are clicking, where they're not clicking, how long they're spending on this section of the page, and so forth. This is a tremendously powerful tool, and I really love Content Square. I don't know why I failed to get buy-in from users across the business. I couldn't get the design people to look at it. I couldn't get my own team to look at it. The CROs were the best users, but there was so much value and data in there that we were not capitalizing on the very, very expensive price tag for this tool. And I felt responsible for that. Spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on software that you aren't getting the team to use is one of my biggest regrets.
I also always find it hard because these tools create a lot of qualitative data, like recordings and user sessions.
Yeah, I think Content Square does a very good job of aggregating qualitative. So you'll get an aggregate recording of 10,000. So you'll see how 10,000 people instead of how one person has behaved, which I think is brilliant. This is why it's such a powerful tool. If I can think about the reasons why this was the case, this affects a lot of businesses. They want to be agile. Product teams want to work in an agile way. We're still a legacy business. We've got bosses who think they know better, maybe from the franchise side. You end up with roadmaps and can't get out of them. You've made commitments to building a part of the product. Oftentimes there's no data to support why you would do that. It's a reactive approach to building rather than a proactive approach. And as head of data, it was my responsibility to change that culture. But that was a difficult fight, especially when you're charging businesses a transaction fee to work with you. They will just tell you what their opinion is, what they want. Hey, I'm paying for this, build this. But we are a data-driven organization. That's not how we operate. Your ideas are valid, but they're deprioritized because we don't have data to support them. That can get a lot of hot water in some places, so be careful saying that.
What's your number one advice for future data leaders who want to increase their impact?
Care about what the business cares about. Spend time with senior stakeholders. Ask what keeps them up at night. What are you scared of? What worries you? What could happen tomorrow that would make this whole thing come falling down? Find out what that is and support them on that front. Yeah. Don't worry so much about churning out reports. Don't worry so much about doing tangible data type work. Of course, it's important, but really care about what the business cares about and focus your energies there and get everybody in your team to also think like that, to think, where is the business headed? What is our strategy? What are the things we're hoping to accomplish? What threats are on the horizon? And pivot your team to be focused on ensuring those things don't happen, or that they do happen if they are where you want to go.
I love that piece of advice. It's starting with the user's needs, challenges, desires, anxieties, not starting with technology.
Technology is downstream from everything. So we want to know, first of all, let's create a culture in which data is useful, trusted, accepted, spoken about by leaders, spoken about by peers, collaborated on between teams. Then let's create a strategy around data. Let's make sure that we're helping the organization move in the right direction with our data efforts. And then finally, we can think about technology. Now, I don't want to come across as someone who's anti-tech or for any reason, has an attitude towards it, but it is the last piece of the puzzle, not the first.
Cool. That was an amazing chat.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Thank you.
We're coming to an end. It's really a pleasure talking to you. A lot of nuggets in here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.